All right, welcome to the Knicks Film School Postgame Show presented by BetUS. DJ Zullo here with the rest of the crew live at T Squared Social in Midtown Manhattan. Tough one. Wanted that one bad. A game that featured two teams that played the game like it was a playoff game. The crowd had a playoff atmosphere. I thought the quality of the basketball for the most part was high level, especially in the first quarter. Clearly on the offensive end for both teams, to be honest, things got pretty hairy there for quarters 2 through 4. But this was a for me, highly entertaining basketball game that ended up being a very frustrating game to watch if you are a fan of the New York Knicks, who, listen, played a competitive basketball game and really, I thought, met the moment in terms of the energy, the competitiveness that was required to compete in a game like this. But in the end, and in the fourth quarter specifically, they got lost. And they got lost because they didn't have their captain steering them in the right direction. As we've seen time and time again, Jalen Brunson bring this team, drag them sometimes over the finish line in these close games time after time. The fact that he wasn't out there was felt, I think, for the first time in the most visceral, real sense. The last 5, 6 minutes of this game, this Knicks offense was meandering. They were without purpose. They didn't have a concept of how to generate a good shot. There were players there that were playing out of their element. I think that led to some of those fourth quarter turnovers, which were critical. 3 fourth quarter turnovers leading to 6 Golden State Warriors points, and I haven't even mentioned it. The final score 97-94. 3 of those points came at the buzzer with an OG Anunoby 3-pointer. So in effect, a 6-point spread in the game when it mattered. So those 6 points off those 3 New York Knicks turnovers were critical, and it just spoke to the fact that the Knicks offense couldn't get grounded and couldn't get themselves going in a direction consistently since the first quarter, but more importantly in that fourth quarter in a way that was going to generate them consistent offense. I thought for the most part, Karl-Anthony Towns on offense was excellent. He made countless tough, physical, high degree of difficulty shots, left hand finishes multiple times, deep threes, contested threes, post ups, aggressive, back to your basket, righty jump hook. Like, he played a really strong offensive game. And in terms of, meeting the moment as a team, he met the moment as a player, especially considering all the narrative leading up to the game and the controversy, which was started and really inflamed by Draymond Green. But that controversy was part of the narrative leading up to the game, and I thought that Karl-Anthony Towns, met the moment. But in the end, you saw the struggles just to generate a good look. And we'll get into, within the next few minutes here, some, I think, mistakes the coach made in terms of providing this Knicks offense with the best opportunity to win this game. But you really felt the loss of Jalen Brunson in this game. To not have someone that you can rely on to generate a good look in a half court setting, I think pushed the Knicks to maybe go out of their element. We saw the Towns drive that led to a turnover and then a foul. We saw the McBride sideline out of bounds mistake. We saw the Josh Hart turnover, missed shots. We see this team trying their best to generate good offense. And you see this team, whether it's Anunoby or Josh Hart or Towns, try to penetrate, get to the rim, and there be a sea of Golden State Warriors there to beat them. Jalen Brunson has this incredible ability to generate points in the short mid-range area, and they don't not having that, and you compound that issue with some of the spacing concerns we're going to get into here in a moment, you really understand why the Knicks struggled so mightily to generate points. The 3-point discrepancy in this game from the start was a massive, massive issue for the Knicks. It was extreme in the first half, and then it wasn't as extreme in the second half, but the Knicks tried their best to get to the rim, an area that the Warriors can, be picked apart in, and they tried to attack, but the Warriors ended up in the second half, especially just loading up help and shrinking those driving gaps and making things very difficult for OG Anunoby and Karl Anthony Towns, who were the two big drivers, pardon the pun, of that style of offense, trying to get to the rim, trying to make something happen. And that intention by the Knicks, I thought, was promising and I thought made a lot of sense. But it also speaks to the issue this team has been facing most of the year, especially since teams have resorted to putting smalls on Cat, is that they are losing the 3-point attempts game in a drastic way that is going to be very difficult for them to overcome consistently against really good teams. And, typically the Knicks can do it in other ways. They can get into the paint and finish. They can get to the free throw line. And they didn't do that, specifically the free throw line number. The Knicks, whether other than Karl Anthony Towns getting to the line, they really didn't have another option there to consistently get to the rim, draw two, get to the foul line. So it was a struggle. And, one of the ways I thought would have been to take Josh Hart and say, listen, we have to try to maximize the Karl Anthony Towns piece of our offense, which is our only true source of like a guy that can just take it upon himself to get a bucket. And I thought Josh Hart's presence in the fourth quarter specifically really made it difficult for Karl Anthony Towns to generate anything driving to the basket. And I thought the Knicks should have gone with Landry Shamet and the starters subbing in for Josh Hart. I thought that would have been made the most sense based on the performance that Josh Hart had in that game. 0 for 4 on layups, a guy that shoots 70% on layups for the night. He couldn't get his layups to go. Credit to the Warriors for contesting many of those. The one Kuminga had, the block in transition, was a fantastic play. So credit to the Warriors for making some of these Josh Hart finishes maybe a little bit more tougher than he's accustomed to, but he missed every shot he took. And then the layup specifically was critical to not finish that. So he didn't have it tonight. And when he doesn't have it on a personal level, to compound that with his presence cramping the spacing, I thought it warranted a change there. And I don't know if the Knicks win the game with Landry Shamet playing for Josh Hart. Maybe there are going to be other problems that are going to crop up, unintended consequences or trade-offs regarding the defensive end. And the Knicks played a very good defensive game, and Josh Hart was a part of that, a big part of that. So I understand this is not going to bubble up other issues, but I thought the offense since the first quarter was struggling in such a way that the coach needed to give them the absolute best shot to generate offense. And I thought Landry Shamet in the game for Josh Hart was a move I would have heavily considered and probably pulled the trigger on. And listen, it speaks to the lack of depth on this team when Landry Shamet is the one I'm trying to beg the head coach to play in the fourth quarter of a close game against a great defensive team and a team overall that's playing as well as any team in the NBA. That's kind of where the Knicks are right now. and it's a tough spot for the coach to be in. And I think that needs to be part of the equation here. Like Landry Shamet probably has a ceiling as a player that you don't want to, once you cross a threshold in minutes in a game, like there's going to be problems there on the defensive end specifically. But I thought the Knicks should have went in that direction, and we don't know. And maybe we'll get some, confirmation from the beat. So Kev, if you hear anything regarding the spat that Josh Hart had with Tom Thibodeau, which was, I know Richard Jefferson said this happens multiple times in a game for every team. I'm going to be honest. Like I saw the ESPN had the clip of Hart and Tibbs going back and forth. It seemed like more than your standard, coach player, argument, but maybe it's nothing. I don't recall Tibbs getting into it with another player since he's been a Knicks head coach in this manner. And it's quite possible that we just don't have it on camera. And this was captured in a way that was obviously very real, and you saw the anger, and you saw the frustration, you saw the cursing, and like the aggression coming from both sides. So who knows if that's going to have any carryover? I would assume it wouldn't, because I think Richard Jefferson is making a good point. These things do happen. I don't know to the extent that he referenced, but they do happen. Eric Spoelstra got into it with Jimmy Butler. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, in a very real, like, aggressive way. Udonis Haslem got involved, and they sort of like moved on from that in a way. Maybe it carried over into this year, and the relationship it hurt the relationship. That's potentially the case, but I'm going to chalk up that moment as just heat of the moment, heat of the battle. Frustration because Josh Hart, on a personal level, is not playing well, and assume this is not going to carry over. But you have to like consider that, and you have to consider his performance as a player, and you have to consider like his presence as a floor spacer, what it does for your only true star offensive player. And I have to, say that I think the coach erred on this one. I thought he should have went in a different direction with Josh Hart. It does feel like we're getting to a moment here regarding Josh Hart's presence in this starting lineup and his presence closing these games that is going to, I don't know, create controversy, or maybe there's going to be a swell of media, national, local, asking and pushing the coach to make a change there, either in the starting lineup or in closing some of these games. I don't know if we're there at this point right now. And without Jalen Brunson, there's like a big need for some playmaking. And Josh Hart had a bunch of assists, especially in that first half. That first quarter, I thought his playmaking was critical for the Knicks to score 30, 31 points in that quarter. Like even though he wasn't scoring, his playmaking was felt. And that's critical when you don't have Jalen Brunson on the floor. So that's where I think you give the coach a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, because you lose Brunson, you take Hart out of that starting lineup. There's a real dearth of playmaking and ability to just, make the right pass, entry passes to Anunoby that, the Knicks did, that Hart did phenomenally in the Portland game. There's things that he could do as a passer that most of these other Knicks players outside Jalen Brunson can't do. So I get why you want him on the floor, but it just felt like the way this team was struggling to generate 3-point opportunities and the way that they were intent on driving it to the basket, like if that was your goal, and it seemed to be the goal right from the start of this game, then I think you had to maximize the spacing, get Shaman in the game, and see if you can pierce that defense that was loading up and making every drive as difficult as you can imagine. Even when the Knicks were able to get points or finish or make passes, make the right read off those drives, like these were difficult, challenging possessions. If you look back at this game, I don't think you're going to find many clean half-court finishes by the Knicks. I thought they were just extremely aggressive getting to the rim. And the frustration, I think, is they didn't maximize some of the spacing, especially in the fourth quarter, and they didn't get to the free throw line at the level, I think, that you would expect based on the amount of driving this team was constantly doing. But I think part of that is when you're guarding the ball, I think you have less concern about getting in front and getting an aggressive contest when you know help is loaded up in the paint. So you could be a little less aggressive knowing help is going to be there. You have trust in your teammates. And I think that played a part in the Knicks maybe not getting to the free throw line in a way that you would have assumed based on the literal number of drives this team was taking. I thought going to an all, 5-out, a true 5-out look in this game specifically made sense. Again, I don't know if they win the game if they do it, but if you're going to give your team the best chance to score points, that to me was the move. The other thing I thought left something to be desired is that and they tried in the fourth quarter, I don't think they capitalized on it enough. Screening with whoever Steph Curry was guarding, screening with him, whoever he was, whether it's Hart or McBride or Bridges, bring that player into the action, put Steph Curry in the action time and time again. They tried in the fourth quarter to push that button. I thought it was a little bit too late. I thought there were other opportunities, quarters 1 through 3, that they could have maybe taken advantage of Steph Curry's defensive issues there. To me, that was part of where I thought some points and some good execution maybe was left on the table. And then to transition briefly before we get into the super chats, I thought the defensive performance as a whole was excellent. I thought this team played a phenomenal defensive game. I thought Bridges, I thought McBride is specifically guarding Curry. It's hard to defend Curry as well as Bridges and more importantly, McBride guarded him. I thought he was elite on the ball and off ball, which is always the toughest part of the Steph Curry experience when he doesn't have it and having to navigate all the action he's putting you through. But on the defensive end overall, I mean, this team, and you're seeing now a clear pattern here in the post-Brunson world. This team compete at a level and perform at a level defensively they haven't reached at any point this season. They are a legitimate good defensive team with Jalen Brunson not on the floor. But then you're also seeing what it does to your offense. I thought overall the defense was excellent. Now, credit to Richard Jefferson for bringing it up, and I think it's worth talking about is that there were 2 possessions there. Karl Anthony Towns in drop, in retreat, not at the level of the screen, giving up 2 massive Steph Curry threes in that fourth quarter. Again, Knicks lose it by 3. The game was really a 6-point game with Anunoby hitting that last second 3-point shot. So the 6 points that Curry generated with Cat in like a shallow drop, not his deep drop, but a drop nonetheless, were just a critical error. Big judgment mistake by Cat to not get to the level of the screen. And when it's Steph Curry, it is not your normal level feet at the free throw line or 3-point line. You have to be beyond the 3-point line. You basically have to get to the ball, and whomever is setting the screen, whether it's Santos or Green, whoever is slipping out into the 4-on-3, you live with the outcome. But to give up 6 points to Steph Curry in that way, to give him 2 relatively clean pull-up threes on the left wing, when you defended him as well as you can throughout the night outside those two possessions, that was pretty frustrating. I think for most players, I thought where Cat was positioned was fine and reasonable, but against Steph Curry, you can't relax. You can't be just fine in your drop coverage. You have to be as aggressive as you're ever going to be. And as Richard Jefferson said it, and I thought it was a perfect encapsulation of those two possessions. If Steph Curry is taking the shot, you've already lost. And I think that's despite the performance of the defense, which, again, they played a great defensive game. But when you give up 2 Steph Curry threes for 6 points in a game that was decided basically by 6 points is really, really frustrating. And we've seen Cat do this time and time again where he's just a little late getting out and just not aggressive enough. And I also don't want it to be the theme of Karl Anthony Towns' night as well. Because again, as I started the monologue, he met the moment in a way that was, I thought, really, I think, gave me some solace that he can go into a playoff setting in a game with a good defensive team and just get to some high quality offense when things are just bogged down and it's a half court game. You're not getting clean looks. For him to get to whatever the point total he ended up finishing with, and I'll pull it up as I'm speaking here. I thought his performance should give all of us some hope that he can go into a playoff game, score 29 points on 21 shots. I mean, that is in this game, that's a really good offensive performance for him. 9 of 16 from twos, 3 of 5 from the 3-point line. Only the 2 turnovers, had the 6 fouls. 64% effective field goal percentage in a game where offense was very tough to come by. But you just can't. The margin's too thin. You can't give those 2 Steph Curry threes up in the way you did. Frustrating game. Positives are going to come out of this. I know he missed some shots late. The Deuce McBride run here without Jalen Brunson should give any Knick fan, some really, positive feelings about where he is as a player right now. You take the defense and you're seeing some development on the offensive end, his ability to push the pace, get across half court before 20 seconds is on the shot clock, like within 4 seconds, and getting into some early offense. Obviously, his shooting is, almost always going to be there. 3 of 6 from 3 on the night. He is becoming like a real, like legitimate, if this is the player, like he's a legitimate 6th man of the year candidate. Like this type of impact consistently, like that's the type of player that we hoped coming into this year based on the growth from last year we were going to see. And we're seeing it, and we have seen it based on his impact numbers and just his presence on the floor. But now we're seeing on the personal level, like him develop some skills and some finishing and some playmaking that I don't think, any of us were sure he had in his bag. But really the defense on Steph Curry, the one shot block, you rarely see Steph Curry's shot blocked based on how deep he shoots it, how quick the release is. And McBride actually jumped before Curry did on that play. And that's probably the only chance you have in that regard to block his shot. But I thought his performance was excellent. I thought, Anunoby, some of the drives get a little, frantic, and you wonder about some of the rim reads, but I thought Bridges, I thought they played strong games as well. But McBride is like the big takeaway in terms of other than Towns, like what were we looking at as a positive coming out of this game? A game that the Knicks had, and Knicks could have won, with some tweaks on the offensive end, maybe some more ball security. I think they could have won this game and finished this road trip 3-2, which would have been huge. But it wasn't to be. And I thought you really felt the first time since the ankle injury, the disorganization and the lack of direction that we all felt in that last 5 minutes of this game without Jalen Brunson. Shams had the report that we're, about Jalen Brunson. This might extend to early April in terms of an absence here. So this team is going to have a runway here to develop some opportunities to continue to figure out ways to generate effective offense without their captain. But, against a really good defense, it's going to be a slog more nights than it's not going to be. And I think that's just the reality of where the Knicks are right now without Jalen Brunson. Now the goal will be, and the hope will be, can you have some development? Can you find some things that you can build into the team once Jalen Brunson is back prior to the playoffs? But with that being said, we'll take a quick break. We'll do a quick ad read here. We'll get into your super chats. I don't know about you all, but I definitely felt this one. The blood pressure was rising. Energy level super high. Definitely going to need some help from Cornbread to relax me, calm me down after this one. And it's been crazy. Life's been crazy lately. And one thing generally that helps me unwind is Cornbread's hemp CBD gummies, which just takes the edge right off. So huge fan of what they do, especially on nights like these. By the time we finish this, we're going to be in the wee hours of the night. Going to need something to help me calm down, help me get to sleep. Cornbread's huge for that. Big fan of what they're doing. Their CBD gummies are made to help you feel better, whether it's stress, discomfort, or just needing a little relaxation. They only use the best part of the hemp plant, the flower, for the purest and most potent CBD, formulated to help relieve discomfort, stress, and sleeplessness. All products are third-party lab tested and USDA organic to ensure safety and purity. Right now, KFS listeners can save 30% on their first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/KFS and use code KFS at checkout. That's cornbread.com/KFS and use code KFS. Please do not, please do make mention of KFS when you do that. It's really important to make sure you're hearing it from us, but check out their stuff. I think it's a really solid product based on, I think, the quality of the ingredients. For me, at least, that's the biggest thing. All right. Thank you, Cornbread. And we have a lot of super chats. So let's get right to it. Kev on the ones and twos. Kev, thank you so much for hanging with me today. And we'll start with Deadward 604 checking us out. Not game related, but it was a pleasure finally meeting the KFS crew at T Squared tonight. Love that. You guys are awesome. Shout out to everyone at T Squared. Maybe still there, maybe lamenting and brewing over a cold one right now. I'm sure the night was fun for all, despite the loss. On a personal level, hope I can get out to one of these very soon. I know Kev got there during the first half, saw some of the guys there, some of the KFS fans, some of the KFS crew, the faculty were there. So I'm sure a great time was had. Deadward's 604. Awesome that you were able to get there, check everyone out, and have a good time. Really, really good to hear. I hope everyone's having a great time at T Squared. Thank you so much for the super chat, by the way. And then we got 2 from our guy, Robert Cross, who on Twitter was going through it So let's see what he's got for us today or tonight. Hello, DJ. Biggest takeaway from Brunson absence is simple. Deuce needs to start for Hart. It is time. Well, Mr. Cross, as you know, I have been a proponent of sticking with Josh Hart in the starting lineup. I have also said that if you were to make a change, putting Deuce in the starting lineup for Mikal Bridges would be the most effective basketball decision. Now, I will be completely honest with you. I am less confident in that position right now. I think there is a lot of basketball reasons why, with Jalen Brunson not playing, that you would maybe want to, you know, at least pull back on Josh Hart's minutes, especially I thought in the fourth quarter of this game. And in terms of like when Brunson returns, I think there's a real argument. I think it's time to maybe experiment a bit with Josh Hart on the bench. He just is, he's going through it in a way, I think, that you can't rely, you're not able to rely on him in the same way as you were in the first, 40 or 50, 40 games of the season, maybe 50 games of the season. He's been a bit inconsistent of late, and he's inconsistent in ways that were extreme strengths of his before this recent stretch. The Knicks really weren't effective at all in transition in this game, and I think most of that is Josh Hart is not as effective in transition of late. And when he is not being the source and generator of transition offense, especially in the starting lineup, like this team is always slow, but then you don't get the benefit of some of, they're never a high frequency transition team, but they do score really effectively in transition compared to the league average. So the overall production is, pretty high. But if Hart is not going to be the fulcrum of that attack, then the things you're getting from him is just probably not enough to warrant the minutes he's playing. And I think that's kind of where I am right now. I'm not going to, because I held a belief in a position, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, even. I'm not going to stay hard and true to that belief because I want to be proven right. I'm seeing the same things we're all seeing. We all saw the fourth quarter struggles tonight, and I think there was many reasons why. I think a significant reason was Josh Hart being on the floor because his performance didn't warrant it on a personal level, and his impact on the other four players didn't warrant it in this game. So that's sort of where I am. And if you have a lot of evidence, Mr. Cross, that Deuce just needs to start when Brunson is back. And I think if Tibbs goes in that direction, I think there is some reason to believe that lineup could really prosper. I think Deuce for Mikal, I think that lineup would really prosper. I think you want Deuce impacting the ball at the point of attack. So in either way, if it's going to be Deuce for Hart with the starters, I think putting Mikal in a role that he's not having to guard point of attack day in, day out would benefit him as a player and maybe allow him to have more energy to utilize on the offensive end. But there are probably 15 players, I think, right now guarding the ball as well as Deuce McBride in the NBA. He's turning into the vision of what we hoped he would be when he was drafted, but that vision probably had such a small percentage of actually becoming reality based on his draft status or slot, based on the fact that he couldn't really dribble the basketball and he struggles in that area still. And his shooting was, a question mark, and his finishing was a question mark. And some of these things are still question marks for him. But the production and the impact on the other four players on the court, I don't think can be questioned at this point. So I hear you, Robert Cross, and I'm listening to you and to others that have been pushing for this for since the offseason, basically since preseason. I'm listening, and I think there's a lot of credence to what you're saying. Thank you, Robert. I know you got one more here. Disappointed that no one took a shot at Draymond. It was deserved, for real. Yeah, I mean, a shot at Draymond. I guess. Listen, I would lie to you if I said I didn't think the same thing. I mean, it's clear though. There's just no one on this team right now that you would think would. PJ Tucker is not in the rotation and likely won't be this season, so he's probably not a candidate. Listen, Draymond was just all the things he was doing and trying to get under Cat's skin and succeeding at times. It's just what he does. And in terms of taking a shot at him, all that would do would be just to reinforce that he's won. And he's gotten under your skin in such a way that you had to physically react to him. Because if you take a shot at Draymond, it's not like he's gonna change anything. He's gonna be who he is, regardless. I thought Towns, he performed in a way that I think extracted a measure of revenge, if that's what the goal was. He had some one-on-one moments there, some possessions where he got the better of Draymond. And Draymond, to his credit, got the better of Cat on a few plays, especially that fake DHO late that sort of put the game away. So listen, I watched the 90s Knicks too, and I understand the ethos of what that team represented and that, but this is it's just a different era, different generation. It's rare that those types of things happen in that way. But also the Knicks just don't, maybe Mitchell Robinson would be, one to do that, but I don't see this Knicks roster as a team, with a bunch of guys that you would think would stand up to a Draymond Green in that way. But I also don't think it would have had much benefit in terms of a win or loss, but would have given fans maybe a measure of pleasure there. But I hear you, Robert, and thank you so much for checking in here. I am AK Legend. What's up? Thank you so much for checking in. F Draymond, sad, but some positives from this. Yep, F Draymond, 100% with you there. Also, frustrated, sad, disappointed. Watched the game with my 10-year-old son, a rabid Steph Curry fan, which was not fun. Kids these days, if you're under 13 years old, maybe under 15, like, you don't root for teams anymore. You root for players. So for him, it's LeBron, it's Steph, because how do you not, as a kid, root for Steph Curry and LeBron James? So with all these games against the Lakers and Warriors over the last month or whatever, having to watch games with someone I love and cherish, but hate sitting down and watching games with, because it's mimicking every Steph celebration when Draymond had the layup late and did the go to sleep thing. He's running around the house doing that. I'm stewing, trying to take notes, telling him this is my work and you're disturbing me, but it's not working. But it is what it is. Very frustrating one. Were there some positives? There were. This team is really maybe finding an identity on the defensive end. McBride, I think, is a huge positive for the team. I didn't think he played great, but I think Shamet continues, I think, to be a viable rotation piece for this team, which is critical with the lack of depth on this roster. But wanted the win bad. I am AK Legend. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Matt G, what's up, Matt? How are you? I can't take this coach serious anymore. How do you justify 40 minutes for Hart or Hart Precious Mitch lineups? He does not maximize the roster or lineups. Hart Precious Mitch. Let's talk about that a bit, and I'll pull up for the game. Shout out our friends over at Pivot Fade, because they break down these lineup groups here. So I just want to see what those three ended up doing as a trio in terms of the on-off numbers. So they play 3 minutes and 30 seconds together. So maybe not as much as you think. Now you can argue 3 minutes and 30 seconds is way too much for those three to share the court together, which completely fair. Warriors won those minutes 4-2. So obviously not a huge deal one way or the other, but I think there is something to be said about this coach just playing those guys on an NBA floor in the year 2025, and that being just a non-starter in terms of your spacing and in terms of lack of offensive cohesion, ball handling, shooting, all the things. And there's no way that trio could defend well enough to justify it. So, Matt, if your point is you can't ever play those three together, I'm with you 100%. And 40 minutes for Hart, I thought was too much. Again, I said at the time, with about 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, I would have made the change and gotten Shamet in the game for Hart. I thought it was a mistake. So, this team without Jalen is just going to have to play some of these guys at least some minutes that are going to just be really tough on the offensive end. And, you can get by with those OG Anunoby drives and Mikal Bridges, self-created mid-range shots, and, Deuce McBride being the one, volume 3-point shooter in the backcourt, and Towns. You can get by, but against a really good defensive team, it's going to be tough. And I don't think the coach gave the team the best chance possible to make some headway there. Matt, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. All right, checking in. Next is JD. What's up, JD? Getting tired of Payne. Wide the hell open bricks. Yeah, so between Hart going 0 for 4 on layups and Payne 0 for 4 on threes, I thought that was an underrated issue of this game. Payne has been a pretty consistent 3-point shooter this year. They needed 2 campaign 3-point shots in the worst way tonight. And every time he took one, I was like, all right, we need this one. I just felt like those threes were just needed in such a visceral, real, tangible way. And the fact that he couldn't get any of them to go down. Listen, you're gonna have poor shooting nights as an NBA player, but I felt like they needed him in the worst way. And I think that's part of why, you haven't really seen his minutes increase. So Kev, your clips from the presser floating around Twitter. So give me a little context on that one regarding what's going on regarding some post-game press conference stuff after the game here. But, campaign, his minutes haven't really increased since Brunson's been out. You would have thought there would have been an increase, but I think you see some of the reasons why on the defensive end. Some of his rebounding on the defensive end was really problematic sometimes. And then on offense, if he's not making threes, there just isn't a lot for him to get to other than a floater out of a pick and roll action. But just needed two 2 threes to go down. And Kev here in the comments saying, Tibbs says he loves Josh. It was just a passionate moment. Yeah, I think that's a kind of what I thought would be the takeaway in terms of Tibbs' response there. You know, it's heat of the moment. Two of the more competitive guys you're going to see in an NBA organization, just having a moment together. And I would, love to know like what created the problem. Like, what was the context regarding like what the anger was? There were a few plays I didn't clip them, and I would have to go back to watch them where Hart was on offense visibly upset about whatever the Knicks were running. If I don't know if someone was in the wrong place or he was upset about play calling. It seemed to me that there was some issues brewing from things happening on the offensive end. All right. Anthony Sixto with us next. At the game was during the timeout break. Tibbs and Hart were going at it worse than I've ever seen a coach versus player in the Tibbs era. So Anthony was at the game, so he likely had a really good view of this. And he's saying that this was as bad as worse than anything he's seen from a coach player in the Tibbs era. And I actually said the same thing during the open about where, why takeaway of what that was. It felt like more than just your standard player coach argument. But I also don't think this is going to have much of a carryover based on Tibbs' classic for just letting things go and moving on when he's upset, and then Hart as well. It doesn't seem like a guy that's going to like hold this and let this carry over into the next day, and certainly not the next game. So we'll see if there is any carryover. Some of these comments in the post game scenario suggesting maybe there's not going to be much of a carryover, and that this was an isolated incident. Anthony, but thank you so much for providing some color on what went down as you were at the game. So thank you so much. John Leary, what's up, John? Too many non-spacing lineups. Broadcast went easy on Green. Disappointing. Hart, 2 bad games against Golden State. 3-point attempts need to increase. Win on Monday. Agree on the non-spacing lineups. I thought there were too many of those. Glad you mentioned the broadcast because they did reference what I think they even referred to it as a controversy regarding Green's comments that Cat was ducking Jimmy Butler, and we all know Cat was at a funeral during their first meeting, and then the subsequent apology from Draymond, and the promoting of his podcast and all those things. I thought the broadcast did a bad job with it as well. So I'm with you, John. And the fact that Mike Breen, who had to have been abreast of the situation, had to have known and seen the comments from Draymond Green, I thought needed to provide additional context of what he referred to as, and I'm quoting, an apology. He did apologize, is what Mike Breen said, which is true. He did apologize, but I think you are lacking significant context when you're not also mentioning the excuse making and the shameless promotion of his podcast while he was apologizing for being completely and utterly shamelessly wrong about why Karl-Anthony Towns missed that first game. So I thought the broadcast failed in that regard. So I'm with you, John, in that. And then agreeing on your other comments too. 2 bad games from Hart. The 3-point attempts, it needs to increase. It's going to be tough without Jalen creating threes for himself and others. And then the only other way I think you can do this is if you're generating some of these in transition, which is just a big problem for this team right now. The transition frequency is just not good enough. So that needs to be, I think, a big time priority for this team. Because if you're going to generate 3-point opportunities and you don't have guys that can generate 2 to the ball and create for others and themselves, transition is probably your next best bet. And the Knicks are just not getting enough out of their 3-point attempts in that specific area. John, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Hush Z, what's up, Hush Z? Tibbs PR feels like at an all-time low. I don't know if it's as low as 22-23, like December, before that, that Cleveland game that the Knicks pulled out. But it's low right now. It's pretty low. And it's low, I think, because all of us knew the expectations. And I said before the season that this is the most important coaching season of Tom Thibodeau's career. And he needed to have his performance needed to meet the moment and be what this team needs to be to get to that, championship level. And I think the bar is set really high right now. And, I'm sure as a front office, you're evaluating everything of this team. But in terms of just strictly like the fan perspective, it feels like it's a pretty low moment for Tom Thibodeau right now. And, I think it's part minutes, it's part some lineup questions. And I think it's part of it is when he was hired, there was a feeling that he was going to be a bridge to something else. And I don't think that feeling, that narrative, that perception has ever gone away. And I think that's shared by a large swath of the fan base. And I think it's a fair position to take right now. And I don't know if I buy into it fully. In fact, I don't think I do. I think I'm not ready to say that Tom Thibodeau can't coach this team to the NBA Finals. Like, I don't think that's wrong if they can maybe make some changes and bring in some other pieces here to supplement what I think is a really good core. But I think if you're telling me that there's gonna be a need for someone else to get them to that next level, I think that's a reasonable take, and I think that was basically the narrative when he was hired. I think a lot of people thought that, and I don't think that's ever really gone away. I think that's playing a part, Hush Z, and I think where Tibbs's Q rating is right now. Thank you so much for checking in. Appreciate that. Row One Senior. What's up, Row One Senior? How are you? Thank you so much for checking in. Am I being silly for wanting to see Kolek out there? Ball handling has been atrocious, and decision making when pressed has been suspect at best. Yeah, so the ball handling, I think you really saw that, to your point, late in this game. Some issues you're seeing that with Mikal. The more he has the ball in his hands, you're seeing, that loose dribble, the high dribble. He doesn't really get super low to the ground. You're seeing teams get really clean digs and deflections on some of his forays to the paint area. The team really didn't handle the pressure that Golden State was applying late in the game. So I think you're 100% right. Now, I think your diagnosis is correct. I'm not sure the medicine you're providing with Kolek is the answer right now. And I also I can't sit here and say you're wrong. I think that I'm just saying I'm not sure if you're right. I've seen Kolek enough to know that there are some skills that would translate in a positive way. Clearly, the passing would translate. He's probably the best pure passer on the team. I don't think that's a controversial take. I think, especially as a lob thrower, he's by far the best lob thrower on the team. Team doesn't really have one. His shooting, I think, is good right now, especially off the catch. The ball handling against pressure, I think, is a question mark. And I'm skeptical that he could right now handle aggressive ball pressure in a way that would be a measurable positive right now. I think his shooting and passing would be, but I wonder, like, can he get to some of those passing reads based on where he is as a ball handler, athlete right now? That's where I think there's some skepticism. I don't know if he's the answer right now. I think the answer needs to come from what this team has right now in this 8-9 man rotation. And I think pulling back on the Hart minutes for more shooting, more floor spacing is probably where I would want to go. Now, I want to see Kolek play based on just wanting to see more of him and seeing if I can get a better picture of like what this player is as a prospect, because he's not young in terms of a draft prospect. Like, he's 22, 23 years old. Like, he's a very polished player in a lot of ways. My question has always been like his ability to gain separation with the ball in his hands and his ability as a defender, which I think if you're going to say one thing is going to keep him off the court, it's probably that area. And if you want to also say that Tibbs is putting too much onus on that area, I get it. I 100% get it. I don't think Kolek is seeing rotation minutes this season, but I don't think you are off your rocker thinking that is something this team should consider right now based on where they are offensively without Jalen Brunson. All right, we'll take a quick break. Get back to your super chats in a minute, but let's tell you about BetUS. Did you know BetUS also has a casino? For all my followers who like slots or live casino dealers, take advantage of BetUS's amazing sign-up bonus. That's a 200% sign-up bonus on bets up to $5,000 or 250%. For crypto, sign-up bonus up to $5,000. Get ready for a rush with the BetUS Casino. Generous promotions and tournaments make every play even more rewarding. Sign up now and experience the difference. And as always, use promo code YouTube150 to receive a 150% bonus on your first deposit, as well as a 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. Remember, gambling involves risk. Please only gamble with funds that you can afford to lose. All forms of betting carry financial risk, and it is down to the individual to make bets with or without the assistance of information provided. Thank you, BetUS. And let's get right back to the super chats with Jason M. What's up, Jason? How are you? Hart cost the game. Playing 39 minutes is unacceptable. I think that's turning into the big theme of the night on the offensive side, especially. And I don't think you guys are wrong. 39 minutes for a player that just didn't seem like he had it is just way too many. For the night, Josh Hart, let's just read off the numbers here. 0 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. A lot of, again, his passing. That's, if there's one thing you have to like recognize, is that without Brunson, playmaking is a big issue here. So Hart does provide that. But let's just like be fair about that part of it. But not that obviously doesn't say that he should be playing 40 minutes a night. But 7 assists matter here. It was -5 on the night, 0 for 7 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, 0 for 5 from 2-point range, 2 turnovers. He was, in terms of shooting the basketball, again, the 0 for 4 on layups, 70% shooter from layups on the season. One of the best finishers in the NBA. Took most of his shots within the painted area except the 2 threes. Now, obviously missed everything. 0 for 5 from the paint and 0 for 2 from 3. Not guarded. Couldn't make them pay. As I mentioned, couldn't finish. Needed to not play 40 minutes tonight. Jason, with you there, 100%. Thank you so much for checking in. Parrish, Duggar, what's going on, Parrish? Josh Hart needed Tibbs to get on him. he's been trash. It's not been a good run for Hart of late. Overall, over the past like 15 games, this has just been he's been underwhelming. And I think playing him 30 to 34 minutes a night is completely reasonable most nights. He just should not have played 39 minutes tonight. And I thought it was pretty clear that him being on the floor was making it just too hard for the rest of the offense to generate good looks. And I think if that's part of the calculus and the player is also not performing well on an individual basis, then I thought the decision almost should have been made for itself. And Tibbs didn't go to it. I know there's other problems that would arise if you went with Shamet in that role there to play with the rest of the starters. But it felt to me like the move that needed to be made for the last 5 or so minutes of the game. Paris Duggar, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Kanyan Pepper. What's up, Kanyan Pepper? What's going on? Hearts -5 and no bench. Game, set, match. Yeah, the bench has been a problem. Hearts -5. We talked about that. I thought Mitch had some moments in the second half where he seemed like he was getting his bearings a little bit, but just didn't seem like he had it tonight. Both Doris and Richard Jefferson mentioned like his fatigue during some parts of the game. He did seem tired, and it seemed like he was getting tired earlier than I thought he was getting tired in his first couple of stints since coming back from injury, which is probably not a great sign. It seemed like he was ramping up here, and it seemed like he got quickly winded and was not active and was not really being a presence consistently in this game. Again, had some moments in the second half, but overall, I thought his performance was very underwhelming. And, it's incumbent upon him to be consistent and really give this team some positive minutes, as we all know. And as you mentioned, Kanye and Pepper, that this team has a very limited bench, and especially limited when Jalen Brunson is not playing. So to have him go out there and just really not look like himself in terms of like his conditioning and his ability to move, it's pretty disappointing, because it's not just the ramp up while he's playing, that there was a long ramp up since he was cleared for like some running, some movement stuff earlier in the season. So he just seems like he's still working his way back in terms of his conditioning, and was hoping by now, middle March, that he would be in a really good spot for that. And they just need him. He needs to be a big piece of it. This team, especially on the nights where Cat gets in foul trouble like he did this evening. Kanye Pepper, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Jesse Daniel, what's up, Jesse? Last year's team was fun to watch every night. This was truly painful basketball. The deuce inbound, every hard attempt, every precious minute. Yeah, I mean, you make some good observations there. I did. I'm a sucker for aggressive defense and low scoring, so I did enjoy the game despite its frustrations. But yeah, there were some like really tough moments there. The deuce inbound was a rough turnover. All the heart attempts, as we mentioned, and then the precious minutes. I mean, I know they just need bodies right now, so I can't kill the coach for playing Precious Achua 10 minutes. I don't think that's unreasonable to play him 10 minutes, in a game. But he had the one obviously short little floater / jumper in the middle of the lane that he missed by 5 feet short somehow. It's rough going sometimes for him, and we should never, ever, ever see the Hart, Mitch, Precious trio again. Hopefully not. Jesse, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Deadward 604 again. What's up, Deadwards? Thank you. Lineups with Hart, Mitch, and Precious should qualify as war crimes under the Geneva Convention. Yeah, there's again 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Not a lot, but it's 3 minutes and 30 seconds too many for those three. There's just no way you're getting enough on the defensive end to warrant the move. So they should never, ever, ever see the floor together. Mitch and Hart, we saw that at times last year in the 22-23 season. Like that can have its own problems just if those two are on the court together. Add in Precious, and it's just it's too hard to generate effective offense with those three. So we're all in. I think we all agree to that, except maybe the one guy that matters most, and that's the head coach, because he keeps trying it, keeps going to it. So we'll see. Maybe they pull the plug on it. We don't see that one on Monday, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Thank you so much, Deadward 604. Thank you. Appreciate it. Robert Cross again, too aggravated to stay tuned to this. You're a talented DJ. Have a good evening. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate it. Get some rest. I'm not offended for you saying, let's take an early night after watching that one. But thank you again for super chat and checking in. Hope you have a great night. And hope talk to you soon. Check in on Twitter as always. All right. Timeout now for the Out of Town Scoreboard presented by T Squared Social. Get a free draft beer when you tell them KFS sent you. Visit tsquaredsocial.com to learn about club memberships, trivia nights, sports leagues, and much, much more. Of course, shout out to everyone at T Squared Social tonight that went out to the KFS watch along this evening. Let's get to the Out of Town Scoreboard, shall we? I think every game has wrapped up. Yep. Not a huge slate. Celtics got a win, 115-113 over the scrappy Brooklyn Nets. So the Celtics get their 49th win of the season. The Thunder, they get their 55th win of the season. This looks like it could have been a fun one, 113-107 over the Detroit Pistons. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, 48 points on the night. Let's see how many free throws he took. Only 10. All right, less than I would have thought. 10 for 10 from the free throw line, plus 18. Our guy, Isaiah Hartenstein, he goes for 12 and 10 for the former Knicks. So the Thunder get their 55th win of the season. Their magical season continues. Fun one here. Milwaukee, they get a win, 126-119 over the Indiana Pacers. Giannis, he goes for 34, 10 and 7. Bucks get a nice win. They haven't had a ton of really impressive wins on the season. Little bit of a getting the sleeping giant vibes from the Milwaukee Bucks right now. Just put it that way. I'm not too worried about them on the Knicks side because the Knicks match up so well against them, but something, I think the Bucks are a little bit underrated right now going into the playoffs here in the home stretch. The Grizzlies, huge victory over the Heat, 125-91. Grizzlies now 43-25. The Rockets, 117-114 over the Bulls. Rockets improved to 43-25 as well. Alperen Şengün, he puts up 24, 15, and 4 assists. Two more. The Spurs, they get a win over the Pelicans, 119-115. And the Wizards go into Denver, it looks like. That game, let me just confirm that, was in Denver, was it? It was in Denver. They win 126 to, where is it? 123. So impressive win by the Washington Wizards, who get a 34-point night from Alex Sarr. Takes 28 shots to get there, but 34 points. Impressive for the rookie. Jokic, he did play on the night. He goes for 40 on 30 attempts for himself. So that is the out-of-town scoreboard presented by T-Square Social, and Jordan Poole had a last-second three. Thank you, Kev, on that one. So he gives the Wizards an impressive win late in that game. Jordan Poole, 19 points, 7 11, 4 for 7 from 3-point range. That'll wrap it up. Out of town scoreboard presented by T Squared Social. And let's get right back to your super chats as we all try to analyze this tough loss. Gerson Rodriguez. What's up, Gerson? You all talk about defense. This team's problem is offense. There isn't any offensive scheme. None. Well, I think there is a scheme. I think there is maybe some lack of creativity in generating specifically some advantageous possessions for Mikal Bridges. I think if there's one player I think could stand to use a little more focus from the head coach, it's Bridges. We've seen, obviously some increase in play calling usage since Brunson went down, but I think there needs to be more of it, especially with Curry guarding him as much as he did on the night. And when Brunson is back, he just needs to be a bigger part of this offense. I think Tibbs has, certain principles on the offensive end, which are, I think, would be considered like a modern approach in terms of like what he wants. He wants like high ball screens. He wants to get to the ball. He wants to generate paint touches, and he wants the ball sprayed out to hopefully the corners, but if not, like the above the break three. Like this is his principles. Now the question is, like, is he providing the scheme, the X's and O's, the play calling to generate those looks? I think overall this year, have thought his performance has been very solid on the offensive end. I think he can do more for this iteration without Jalen Brunson, generate more 3-point opportunities for his team. I think the easiest way to do that in the non-Brunson games is just to lean so heavily into shooting, spacing, that you can maybe generate more looks based on the personnel and not necessarily the play calling itself. But Gerson, I appreciate your sentiments there, and I think you're right that right now offense is, I think, the bigger issue, and offense was on the downtrend with Jalen Brunson playing. So this is not just only a non-Brunson issue right now. Thank you, Gerson. I think you have one more coming in here. Appreciate that. Bring Mike D'Antoni to run offense for the rest of the season. Knicks will win by 20 every night, including Boston. The problem is not the players, is coaching offense. Yeah, so Mike D'Antoni is, or any sort of offensive quote unquote mastermind, like what could he or she do to this roster to enhance it on the offensive end? And it's a tough question to answer because you just don't know the counterfactual of like what this team would look like with someone else coaching them. But we have seen time and time again, like a team perform really well, but maybe suggest that there's maybe like a ceiling there, and a new coach comes in and the team makes a leap. I don't know if Tibbs is that guy where you need to sort of like, he needs to be the bridge to someone else, but I think they do need more from him on the offensive end without Brunson playing. I like some of the actions early with Cat, like those wedge screens to get Cat post ups in the early part of the game just to give him a touch with a empty corner, a lot of space to work with. I thought that was positive, but they really didn't go to that in the second half as much. So you have sort of your scripted actions there to give Cat an open space to work against Draymond with that wedge screen, which is like an angle screen. So Cat can, you're basically screening Draymond in that play. So you're allowing Cat to catch the ball a little cleaner, maybe a little deeper than he normally would. And then he can go to work. Excuse me. They really didn't utilize that action as much in the second half. So would have liked to see that, and just want to see more actions run for Bridges with and without Brunson. I think that's kind of where my head is at right now. Gerson, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Blue Flags. What's up, Blue Flags? Appreciate it. Knicks offense-oriented roster needs a more offensively capable coaching staff. Make Tibbs GM and hire Pablo Brigioni to coach, clean out the staff. Wow, that is a suggestion. Tibbs in the GM role with Pablo Brigioni as the coach. That's a very specific suggestion too. I don't think Tibbs as a player personnel guy is ever going to happen again based on how it ended in Minnesota when he was basically running player personnel and coaching. And then on Brigioni, I think I don't know much about how he's performing as an assistant coach right now, but I think players coming from, Europe or in South America, like some of these areas where the requirement to be more creative on offense is much greater because the floor's not as big. You have less spacing to work with. There's no defensive 3 seconds. So you really have to be uber creative in these other leagues outside the NBA to generate effective offense. You're seeing this with the Isola, the assistant coach in Memphis. Coach Paris, one of the best European coaches in the league, comes over to Memphis. He's basically reconstructs their entire offense and has been a huge benefit to the Grizzlies' resurgence this year. And you see this time and time again, like coaches outside that don't grow up in like the American infrastructure of basketball tend to have a more creative, unique play style, which is a necessity outside the NBA because the talent level is so much less that you can't spam pick and roll, isolations, post ups in the same way. It's got to be very specific actions drawn up to combat smaller court, less talent, and no defensive 3 seconds. So I think all those things lend itself to being more creative. So any coach, I think, like Brigioni potentially would maybe have more creativity, which isn't always going to lend itself to better wins and losses because that's only one aspect of what coaching is: accountability, preparation, all those other things like getting buy-in. Like those things are probably just as, if not more important than just the X's and O's things. And Tibbs, I think, is elite at some of those other areas that are outside the schematics. But Blue Flags, you make some good points. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks for checking in. Gerson again. What's up, Gerson? Thank you again. Brigioni has been a disaster coaching with the Argentina national team. Don't even think about it. All right. Well, I appreciate the context there. Want to dive in a little more to see like what's been going on there, but I'll take your word for it because I've not been following that. So if he has not been performing well with the Argentina national team, clearly wouldn't be at the top of my list for potential coaching prospects outside your standard, retreads and college guys. Thank you, Gerson, for that. I really appreciate providing that context there. David Crockett, what's up, David? We talk about threes, but nobody other than JB finishes in traffic or consistently draws fouls. other than Cat. Hard to win with no threes or free throws. Yes. No threes, no free throws. So the Knicks, just to get the numbers out there, took 24 threes, did make 9 of them, so the percentage is solid. The Warriors, on the other hand, took 41, only made 13. So there's obviously some shooting variance that benefited the Knicks a bit in terms of the Warriors only shooting 31%, but they took 17 more three-pointers, and the Warriors took 9 more free throws. So you lose the three-point attempts by 17, and you lose the free throws by 9. And that's a problem. Points off turnovers, by the way, 19 for the Warriors, only 8 for the Knicks. Knicks did well, second chance points, outscoring the Warriors 17-9. So there's, in terms of shot quality, the Knicks were just behind the 8 ball from the start. And it's just really, as well as the Knicks shoot from inside the arc, it's just going to be not impossible, obviously, but just very hard to consistently win against really good teams when they're taking so many more threes and getting to the free throw line better. Like, you have to just be elite from the mid-range area. The Knicks do, even without Brunson, have some good mid-range shooters, but it's more times than not, it's not going to be enough to beat a good defense. You nailed it, David. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Preto Rock, what's going on? Thank you so much for checking in and participating. Insanity is doing the same thing over again, expecting same results or expecting different results. Keep allowing teams to make threes and not matching the offense is terrible. We have no creativity on offense unless it's save me 11. Yes, even it's a good point, because even if Brunson was playing, the offense would have sort of boiled down to him, Jalen Brunson, creating offense in the last 3 minutes of the game. But, there's some real offensive capability on this roster. Bridges, I think Anunoby's made some strides this year with the ball in his hands. Cat has been, an excellent offensive player. But if you don't have Brunson playing, you're really left with, if you really want to be fair, the Knicks don't have a ball handler that you can consistently rely on to get to come to him. That is what every offense is trying to do. It's what makes Steph Curry, obviously the shooting, but it is the gravity where he'll get 2 to come to him off the ball without the ball being in his hands, but especially on the ball. And Butler's done that before, especially some of his, his baseline drives. Knicks don't have anyone really other than Brunson that can do it consistently. And when you take Brunson out of the mix, it just makes things very difficult. So, yeah, I think you can probably do more as a coach to try to generate offense. But if you can't generate 2 to the ball and you're not a transition team, then I think it's more personnel than it is coaching from my perspective. And I've been critical of Tibbs, especially over the past, several weeks, but it just feels like there's just so many limitations right now with what this team has on offense. And that I think it's more, if I had a pie chart, it would be like 70% personnel, like 30% coaching. But that doesn't mean the 30% can't matter. And I think there's ways to do it. I've talked ad nauseum already tonight about the heart factor, cutting into his minutes a little bit, putting some more shooting out there with Landry Shamet, I think would help. And then also, like, when you go to the 2 center lineup, so the Robinson Towns in the first quarter, I think that was the first time we saw that Hart was on the floor. Like, just simply just have Anunoby out there instead of Hart, like, to have another spacer, to have Hart, Mitch, and Towns just feels like an unnecessary decision there. So I think that's one. I think it's my issues with Tibbs is more of the minutes rotational stuff versus schematics. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. A few more left here. Don't bother me. I'm busy. What's going on, busy? How are you? The irony of all tonight, the one player the fan base is screaming to bench is the one Tibbs is arguing with during the timeout. You would think that would get him benched. Nope, not this coach. Yeah, listen, I'm sure Tibbs has had many arguments with players over the years that he's probably lets it roll off his back a little bit. And, we know from Tibbs with the story by James Edwards regarding his lack of technical fouls and he's never been ejected from games that he gets angry, then he just forgets about it. He doesn't let it fester and frustrate him long term. So listen, these things do happen. I think there's ample reasons to lighten Hart's minutes that have nothing to do with that argument. That unfortunately the cameras caught it, and it's just not a good moment. I think for Tibbs or for Hart, for that matter. But these are insanely competitive guys, and I'm sure that they're going to let this resolve without any carryover. But there's still some level of concern whenever you see it. But largely, the bigger issue is you need to have the pulse of your team to where if Hartz doesn't have it and he's impacting the spacing and the way he was, just go in a different direction here. See if Landry Shamet can give you enough juice to provide some offense. Thank you, Busy. Appreciate it. Iceman Sham, what's going on? As I'm seeing videos of, it looks like the entire Knicks roster go and hug Draymond Green after the game. Looks like, so Cat goes to the bench. I'm sorry, goes to the locker room. So this is after the game ends. So Cat goes to the locker room, and Bridges, amongst others, PJ Tucker, go and kind of have a moment with Draymond Green, hugging him, smiling. It's not a great look, to be honest. Don't love seeing that. Now look, again, different era. These players were all friends, but what he said to Towns or about Towns was pretty awful, and the apology made it worse. And the smack talking in the game, and calling Cat soft and all those things, and to see Cat leave the floor pretty quickly to go to the locker room, and then you see his teammates go and chill with Draymond for a little bit, share a laugh. Not a great look. Just got to be honest with that. I don't like seeing that. Anyway, Iceman Sham, thank you so much. If Tibbs is gone, I wouldn't mind a Jeff Van Gundy return. Jeff Van Gundy, the defensive coordinator for the LA Clippers. The guy literally coaches the defense when to the point where he is literally the head coach when they're on defense. It's the craziest thing. He is up on his feet, calling out plays, pointing out actions that are about to happen. And when they go back on offense, he sits back down, and then Ty Lue resumes coaching. I don't think I've seen as clear a juxtaposition between a defensive coordinator and a head coach in this way. You've obviously seen a lot of defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators, but usually they're not on their feet and just literally doing the coaching when the team is on defense. But I get the feeling he's not going to be the guy you'd want to go from after Tibbs. Like, I just get the feeling if you're going to move on from Tibbs, you want to go in like a really different direction in terms of how you view the game and maybe some youth, um, different eyes on, from different eras. I don't know if you want to go from Tibbs to a Van Gundy. I think that would be a tough, even though he's popular in New York. I don't know if that one makes a lot of sense. But shout out Jeff for doing a great job with that Clippers defense. It's a really good defense, and he seems to be a big part of that. Iceman Shams, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Dom Cappuccini, what's up, Dom? How are you? If you're scared, get a dog. If you're gully, go to T squared. One of these days, I'll get there. I can't be more proud of this team than I am right now. Strong effort to finish a long trip. Yeah, I mean, listen, effort was amazing. They really competed in a way that was part and parcel with what this game required on the road. Good on you to mention, end of a long road trip. And, those games are always tough. You want to get home. You've been out on the road for a while. Time difference, all those things. So to have the level of compete the Knicks had, despite all those factors, and not having, obviously, their best player, it's an impressive performance overall. But we don't get participation trophies at this level, but we could still be proud of the effort and what they how they competed, which was as much as you can ask for in this game. Thank you, Dom. Appreciate you. All right. Super chat for being an A+ dad with your son. Go KFS. That's from Cab Ian. Or Ian. Thank you, Cab Ian. Appreciate that. Try my best. Listen, he's a good kid, but he's also been diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder, ODD. If you know, you know. It's a basically anything you tell him to do, he is going to fight you on it and take the opposite approach. So he is relishing those moments where he can root against the team that I root for. And it's just something I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my waking days. But it is fun to share games with him. It just sucks when it's the Warriors or the Lakers because he's definitely rooting against me. All right. That was the last one, Kev, on the night. Thank you so much for everyone tuning in for the KFS postgame show. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, leave a 5-star rating wherever you are listening to this episode. The subscription part of it, please subscribe. We are, I think, at 19,800 and change in terms of our subscribers as we full force ahead push towards 20,000 and beyond. Big goal for the KFS group for this year. Thank you so much for everyone that tuned in. Kev, thank you so much for hanging with me and keeping me honest. Tough loss, but we'll get back at it on the next one. And until then, I hope everyone has a great night, great Sunday, and we will all talk to you soon. Take care. Oh, I have a BetUS. Sorry. Are we presented by BetUS? Sorry. This has been the KFS Postgame Show presented by our good friends, and we love them so much. BetUS. Can't forget that. Kev, thank you so much. Keeping me honest. I'm talking about. You got my back, man. Thank you so much. BetUS, you guys are the best. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon. Everyone have a great night.